Looking at the daily chart today, MA is still converging, right? That 5-day MA is going to catch back up to that 20-day MA. Upper Bollinger Band um, starting to push to the upside. 5-day MA coming back to crossover. We could head into, well, we'll see after FOMC. It's waiting for FOMC um, to really truly pick its trend here. But a retest of the highs here, maybe a retest of the upper Bollinger Band is possible today, so don't count it out. Um, but truthfully, we'll wait for FOMC to decide on what's gonna happen. So same old here within this wedge um, of price, right? Highs to the MAs, not much will likely happen. Um, yeah, about a point and a half above the prior highs for the upper Bollinger Band. So it's possible to retest it. Not likely, but possible. So we'll see. Um, Going to the 30-minute chart, right, the multi-layout here. Just buying up within this yellow algo after pink break. Um, we have already broken out of orange, right? Buying up in yellow isn't great. It's very slow on the 1 minute, which you have seen yesterday. So this could be just liquidity building for FOMC if there's an attempt to push to the downside. So keep that in mind. Um, this these liquidity levels will come in handy later on. So first move I'd like to see is if we do retest the highs, is this head and shoulder, right? Grab liquidity from all-time high, push down, break out of the yellow algo to grab the left shoulder liquidity here, right? That'd be a really nice move to play. And then you'd wait for the handle to form. Or if the selling happens early, right? We got the MA retest here. You'd see this form up off the MAs with the yellow algo and the blue algo here as well. So any major moves are going to happen at the MAs. It's, there could be a breakout of these highs to get to the upper Bollinger Band. I'd ideally want to see a handle. It could just grind up all the way. So ideally, any big move is just going to be to the downside. Right? If we sell to the MAs today before FOMC, great. Right? If it grinds up early, and then sells later on in today, back to the MAs, that's not too bad of a move. Very possible as well. Right? So that head and shoulder playing out like this. If we grind up today, right? This would be something I ideally want to see. So we'll see what happens. Otherwise, if it stays within the yellow buying algo, right? If it stays within this, just don't overtrade, right? It'll be the same as yesterday. Um, so we'll review yesterday's price action very quickly here. Not much to say other than, yeah, it was a grind up, right? There was no reason to short until yellow break, which there was an end of day lotto, right? So if you were able to catch that, well done. Um, some decent continuation structures. Ideally, you need to understand that the bears were not in control, right? This was a nested inverted head and shoulder here, right? So understanding that, right, that the bears did not have control. Always remember what I talked about in this section right here, this area, right? If it's not heading down here, right? If it's not down here, then there's no reason to short, right? There's no reason to short up here. So if you took puts up here, why, right? Why would you do that? You need to understand, right? It's attempting to break out of the highs here, right? Instead, it's building liquidity, soaking the sellers. You see that with blue, and then you see the retrace of blue here perfectly, where you can take an entry, right? So simply understand that the higher time frames were telling you not to short. You don't see any large selling activity occurring here. they're not attempting to break these lows, there's no reason for you to take puts then, right? Simple as that. And then after that, right, you can see easily not much reason to go short. Um, yeah, simple as that, right? If you ever, here's something I should say. If you ever are stuck and unclear on when you should take short entries, wait for cups to close. If you do that, you can't go wrong, right? So if you were looking for a short entry here and you just kept losing, right? Simple as this. Wait, right? If this had happened, so much better of a move, right? Look at these orders that came in here, right? Wait for them to be retested. And then you could have taken the handle here. Beautiful trade, right? You would have had more confirmation, more volume. So much better of a trade. All right. Yeah, so 5 days back above the 20-day MA, but remember, they're still converging. Um, so it's not confirmed that it's just going up now, right? Wait for the retest of the MAs, some kind of structure to form off of that. Truthfully, after FOMC, we'd want to see that happen. Retest of the upper Bollinger Band, right? Those things a lot easier to play with the trend then. That doesn't happen. It's just converging, building liquidity, right? Okay. All right, so keep an eye on if you really want the simplest trick today, wait for selling precision to first occur. Right, we got some simple targets beforehand, 692.73, right? Yesterday's close, right, which is the gap. You could wait for that to be retested and look for continuation structure to the MAs. Otherwise, simply, right now is just liquidity building. Try to or estimate what the range is, right? So within this area, don't take a trade, wait for an imbalance. I would really want to see it expand, right? So I'd like to see the range get larger and then a head form above, right? And then magenta appearing, right? So we would have a head and shoulder here, right? This would be ideal, right? And this would grab liquidity at the highs up here, and then we would have some nice selling. That would be ideal, right? Especially if they're to do it later today. Okay, so far you have a precision that's found. They're attempting, but this isn't ideal, right? So instead, wait for the breakout, wait for the retrace, right? Much more ideal. Any long at this point, right? If the buyers show up early, you still want to wait for a retrace, right? Why? Because there's thin structure, right? If we don't have proper structure, it's always best to not get involved. Okay, so you see the green precision, right? Teal's breaking, but we could be contained within this orange, right? So in this area, it's still best to wait, right? As we want to see who's in control, right? If we see the bulls pushing out like this, right, you can go along within this area. This would be the most ideal, right? See the liquidity built, teal break, hopefully within a precision. Any short opportunity, it's still best to wait for confirmation, but you could wait for this retrace as well, right? So waiting for a retracement, building more liquidity, that's not too bad of a confirmation, but um, yeah, waiting for this gap retest as well, ideal with this key level. So at this point, magenta will have appeared. Okay, so not much happening quite yet. Right, we had the teal break, retrace, attempting to break out of this range. Still not ideal, right? Uh, I'd wait for a deeper retracement here, right? Ideally, some continuation structure, turning this resistance as support, right? Right, so at this point, it's just going to be best to wait for the breakout of orange, retrace before shorting, right? When it's within, simply if it's within these bounds, just be very careful, right? Not worth your time to trade the in between. All right, even better. Buyers want to show up and break out of this. Just wait for the right retracement now, and we're gonna get a nice move to the upside. If in any long position, right, within this area, that's not the worst, right? It's still not ideal, but it's possible. If you took a long position here, you should be much more than protected by now, right? You could see it with the teal and green precision, right? This was the buyers appearing. It's possible. I didn't take it. I'll wait for more confirmation, right? Especially before FOMC. I'm okay. Waiting for a bit more confirmation, better structure. Make sure you keep an eye on the 30-minute today. Right, no reason to go short at this point. Wait. Wait for a head and shoulder to form. Inverse cup to close. Can't go wrong with that. Buyers are strong today. Remember, if there's going to be any big dump, firstly, let's spot the taper algo. We'll see it with once magenta appears. All right. Once we have magenta, wait for it to taper the range. All right. Allow liquidity to build. You'll be just fine. All right. Okay, so just a quick illustration, right? This was our structure to break out, right? So this was liquidity building for the move up, right? So at this point, you need to wait again for that liquidity building to break out, right? You'd see the breakout here. So we'd want to see a structure within this, right? As long as it's within the orange, this will be our bull flag algo, right? So within the orange, it's attempting to build a continuation structure, and you'll be able to see that, right? So wait, just be patient. Don't force a trade here. And if it's gonna attempt to sell to the downside, I'll show you that illustration next, right? So if we start to build liquidity within this area, then a sell off this way, right? This will be from a lack of continuation. Let me form it out a little bit better for you. Right? Magenta will be ideal to see here. Right? You'll see the magenta break within this area. So let's find the low that magenta will be playing off of, right? Where the buyers get involved. Where you see those buyers get involved, I'll place down the magenta. And that will be the low the sellers will attempt to break with magenta. Okay, so at this point, just wait. Right, we're still buying within the blue, which is our weaker buying precision, but a precision nonetheless. Don't get trigger happy to short. Right, there's no reason for you to short until we're within this area here, right? There is a possible one, right? If we taper at the top with this, right? At that point, I'll spot the magenta, place the magenta. It will happen within this area, right? So you can wait for orange and magenta up here. The best thing you can do right now is if you're thinking about entering is to just give yourself a 15-minute break. Right? Remember the rule. We just had a move to the upside. Truthfully, we don't even know if the move is done to the upside, right? It's not even broken out of the blue precision yet, so there's no reason to even think that quite yet. But after a move, wait, early on, there could be another move within 15, 20, 30 minutes, right? So 15 to 30 minutes will be when the next move occurs, right? So you just wait. And if there's not a move within those 30 minutes, you can ideally expect the market to stay within a range for a bit longer then. Set alerts, wait for break and retraces if you need to. Right? Don't get too focused on trading this right now, is what I'm getting at. So at this point, right, if you're not involved, we'd want to see this firstly sell, right, to build some sort of structure, right? That's what we'd want to see. Some sort of structure forming up. Right, for any downside, allow the selling to occur first. If there's a starter entry, right, within the green precision, there'll be two areas, right? There's a possible one here, right? If the green precision appears, so within this area or within this area, right? So you wait for both of those opportunities to firstly appear, right? You're a reactor. Currently, you see it selling within the teal. It means there's nothing for you to do here, right? So we'll place the teal here. So ideally, you would see it occur with teal break back into the orange. If that doesn't happen with green precision, no trade. Instead, can you see how it would be so much better for them to first attempt to fake sell it here, and if they reclaim that, it could break out as well. You just have to be very careful, right? Wait for the selling to occur, right? Wait for it to occur. It won't be easy to take the position there. I'll tell you that now. Okay, so let's watch. Strong selling, right? If you zoom it up here, right, that's okay because it broke out of the green or the blue and you had teal as a guide, so it is possible. But instead, if you're waiting for confirmation, right, that's good to see. Okay, so now we're in the middle of a wedge, right? Middle of a liquidity wedge. There's no liquidity within these areas, right? There's a lack of it, it's a void, right? So it's within the green precision, right? We'll firstly see if they want to continue down and break out then, right? We'll wait for this. Hopefully it's right here, right, where we see that pink become resistance. Don't get too trigger happy taking a position right here. If you do that, you're likely to get faked out and lose, right? So just wait. Think to yourself, have the bulls lost control? Have they even broken out of the orange? No, right? Is it a bad Zomi? No. Why? There's a decent enough imbalance, right? If you've been with me for a while now, you'll understand that this is a void, right? There's not a lot of orders to hold this up here, right? Where are they going to want to hold it? At the prior resistance level where the buyers and sellers first had a disagreement, right? So VWAP was an obvious target. I'll be more patient, but yeah, it was possible here. Right? It was very possible. That's who getting the candle to come out like this is, you know, who knows that's going to happen, right? Nobody does, truthfully, right? You can hope for the retrace out of teal to first get the confirmation to get the imbalance back to the balance point here. But, sometimes that just happens. So if you took the earlier Zomi, well done. Okay, so at this point, you need to be doing one of two things. Waiting for an entry for puts down here, or watching to see if the bulls are going to break and retrace this as support, right? So here are where your two entries will occur, right? Let me draw that a little bit better. Well, now at this point, right, we would want to see it happen like this. So there'll be multiple entry points, right? You see that? Okay, so we have the foundation laid out. You understand where you're supposed to be looking for trades, which means if you're looking at it right now, right, is there possible zomies? Yeah, sure. Right, now we have the buyer precision starting to appear again, right? This is great. Watch the pink. Yeah, so if you thought that big red candle was an attempt from the uh, or a sign to go short, you're thinking wrong, right? You didn't wait for the algo to break, right? You didn't wait for orange to break. You didn't wait for pink to become resistance, right? We have magenta here as well. For now, orange is just fine to wait for the break as long as it's with the liquidity level below, um, right? The 694.30-ish area. That doesn't happen though. You have to be patient. I'm placing a magenta here now. So if we do start to taper within this range, right? So if the bulls lack continuation, you're watching to see if the bulls lack continuation first, right? Then you wait for magenta, right? And if there isn't a structure here on the break, use it as confirmation. Watch to see if the bulls or the bears retrace and break out of this pink, right? There will likely be another pink that gets involved sooner, but watch for the break and retrace of that magenta. Whatever you do, don't get trapped in a position here within the pink and magenta here. You'll regret it. I personally don't think they've built enough liquidity to head higher, but if I see the green precision pushing this out or the blue precision, right, I wait for the retracement above, right? So if I see this occurring, right, where it would be within the blue precision or green precision, I want to go long within this area. Why? Because this resistance turns support, and the angle of the green and blue precision, right, allows me to keep a very tight stop loss, right? The buyer here is very strong, which means I could have a very high risk to reward, right? And it's within the trend. So we have multiple confirmations that this could head higher, right? All-time high, 696.09. We could be targeting the upper Bollinger Band, now at 698 and trending higher, right? So if this is going to continue higher, allow it to, right? Look for structure. It can be that simple if you allow it to be. Raja, I will answer your question, um, but please remember VIP response chat is literally only for if I need responses, not for questions. Um, but what you want to see, it is a visual thing, and well, you can see it visually. You can see it in the volume, but you see how these candles are just going straight up. These are soaking sellers, and buyers are getting activated, right? It really is that simple to see a precision activated, as long as there's big green candles attempting to break resistances, right? Um, so if you see it attempting to grab this area, right, you know there's a precision within here, right? Vice versa, right? You know the precision's here, right? Because they're attempting to break out of, well, the teal was here, right? With the pink that I placed later, but you see the precision is attempting to break this resistance, right? Um, you'll see now then after the breakout does occur that the volume below increased, right? So you know that there's a precision activated. Buyers are bringing this higher. Um, Same will go vice versa with the sellers, right? So sellers here broke a support, right? They broke a support, pushed through this support, right? So we know there's a stronger, an even stronger seller than teal at that point. But remember, it went back to the balance point here, which I was talking about how voids work. I'll explain more of those um, later. People who have been with me longer understand that a little bit more. Um, Basically, on a breakout, right? If the candles are, think of it like this. Remember, you've heard the term easy up, easy down, right? The last resistance point we had was within this area, right? Uh, within this area, um, which means these candles here, right, are just a void to the upside. Not a lot of sell orders, just buy orders pushing this straight up, right? There's no resistances being formed within. You see that with the green precision pretty clearly. Um, and so once the liquidity built, usually there's always a liquidity building phase prior, which you did have, but then you'll normally get a retrace and a sell off like this. Sadly, there wasn't a retrace there, right? They just went right for it. So there was, like I said, an earlier Zomi here was possible, blue break with teal resistance. You could have managed the risk to reward to be just fine by protecting or being able to guide with the green precision as it appears, but definitely should have protected by here, right? That is a more in-depth price action breakdown there. So if you don't understand it right away, don't feel bad. It'll take you some time to register how that works. Um, an easy way to look at price is understanding that, again, this is like an easy up here. Why? Because there was an easy down here, right? So again, allow liquidity to build, and if you get a head and shoulder to form within this area, right? Let's just say there was a magenta that appears here, right? How do you think the market will attempt to go down, right? It'll mirror these candles, right? And if we lack imbalance, right? An imbalance in precision here, right? There's a good chance it could just easily grind it, right? So you need to wait for that imbalance to first appear, wait for a structure to appear, right? Wait for precision to appear, right? So if the green precision appears, you see the entry, that's how it'll happen, right? So hopefully, Raja, that did answer your question. Um, Try to break it down a little bit more so you could understand how those entries appear, how they work. And then also explaining why this red candle did what it did. Truthfully, nobody knows, right? It could go down even further, right? If the imbalance is strong enough and they want to grab even more liquidity, right? It could also just not go down there. Nobody truthfully knows, right? We just assume these things, right? So you have targets, but you use the precision algos to guide your positions, right? Nothing's perfect, right? Okay, so at this point, right, within the wedge, building liquidity between the pink and magenta, right? Still within the orange, right? So could you see the possibility, of a nested here. So for a lot of people, right, who are thinking that there's a good short opportunity here, there's not, right? What low needs to be taken out? This low, right? So until you see a break and retrace of that low, right, you have to be very careful waiting for that, right? You're waiting for that. Okay, on any breakout, you guide with precision, right? So pink is attempting to break out here. I place a precision, gauge the strength. If magenta and if the main magenta here, sorry, the main orange and the magenta here aren't involved, just be very careful, please. All right, remember, this is a possibility. Just look at the 30-minute, look at the daily, look at whatever you got to do to tell you, be careful here. Okay, still be very careful if we stay within this wedge, right? You'll see where the two entry points are. If you don't see the precision activating, right? You don't see this load being taken out with a proper structure, just wait, right? I prefer this to be taken out with the magenta, right? So if it comes earlier, I'll wait for it to retrace, right? Otherwise, I'm okay with waiting for this, right? If we lack continuation up here, this is what you would see, right? So let me illustrate it a little bit better. I know there's a lot there, right? So let's say we get this in breakout after having this liquidity build, right? You start to taper again, buyers can't get it, the sellers will appear, right? And you'll see an attempt to the downside after a lack of continuation. There would actually be a starter within here from magenta. May come later within today though, so just keep that in mind. But you'd see a possible entry point here and a possible entry point here. Okay, so not much is happening right now. You have a break of this orange here, but magenta is right here. You need to be very careful, right? There could be a fake out as well, right? So you need to watch the retracement. The retracement down here is very, very important to watch. Um, if the sellers can't hold this point as resistance, right? If they don't hold this point as resistance, the buyers will push out. You'll see that happening with magenta and orange. They'll either become support and break out of teal here, or they'll hold it as resistance and sell down, right? So just be very careful. Don't take any position too soon. I think we're going to chop within this range for a bit longer. Um, If a selling starts to happen, right, you've got an idea of what to be watching out for. Um, there hasn't been much today. That's expected, right? You expect not much to happen the day before FOMC. I think here is my guess. Here's my magic 8 ball guess. I think we form the nested inverted head and shoulder, breakout, taper, and end the day we start to sell. Maybe back down to the gap close below. That would be a fine target. If we get to the MAs even today, wow, right? Beautiful. But who knows where it goes to? I think there will be selling just later on today. I'm okay with waiting if it wants to head down now. I'm wary of this because I want you to look at the volume. The volume is lowered and it's decreasing still, right? There aren't sellers here, right? If there are, they haven't showed themselves yet, so you need to wait for them to at least appear. Right, you'll see the volume increase if they attempt to break the magenta and orange. Watch to see the volume staying increased for more confirmation as well. So if we break down, you see a large volume increase on this retracement to the downside, holding to the downside. That's what you want to see. Um, Now volume is better gauged over time, right? Not off of just one candle, right? So if you see one random spurt of volume, it normally doesn't mean much unless the candle itself is very volatile, right? So just be very careful of today. That's all I'll tell you. Um, don't overtrade between a magenta and pink line. Wait for their edges to come into play. Simple as that. You wait for that, you do so much better. All right, guys, I am gonna get on out of here. Don't overtrade the day before FOMC, right? It'll get better after FOMC and during FOMC to trade. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Take care.